Let's continue. We are having Ciprian Gabel with us. Welcome to the La Nova Movilidad. And Ciprian, you're responsible for the company Tinci, which is producing some salts for the electrolytes of the lithium-ion batteries. So welcome, and what can you explain us? How is it Tinci approaching the production in China and overseas?
Good morning. Good to see you. I want to emphasize that actually Tinci is not only manufacturing lithium salts, we are also manufacturing electrolytes. We are actually the market leader in terms of electrolytes, with a market share of more than 33-34%, depending on who you ask. And then we are a vertically integrated company, and that's how we have the lithium salts inside our house. We have a very high degree of vertical integration, which is actually our competitive advantage. Now, in Tinci Materials, I'm responsible for the expansion of the company in the European, African, and also Indian region. And going back to your question, we have different strategies. Now we are very dominant in the Chinese market. In China market, we have very mature teams. We have very good systems in place, and we pretty much have a large electrolyte facility, very close to all the major battery manufacturers in the Chinese market. Now, when we look at China and outside of China, exporting the technology outside of China, we have a different strategy, because the electrolyte is a dangerous chemical. For electrolytes, you have more challenges compared to other materials. With other materials, you might want to export, you might want to move the production because of cost control, because of different political challenges or geographical. In terms of electrolytes, on top of all of this, we have these logistics that have to be fixed. The electrolyte has, in general, has a lower shelf life, and when you need 70-80 days to send the product from China to another country, then you are basically risking to not have the product ready on time. And for this reason, we are developing new facilities outside of China, where we can support the local customers in a much faster time frame. And of course, on top of the manufacturing facility, we also need to look at the localization of the whole supply chain, because at this point, the infrastructure for the new energy industry outside of China is still in a growing stage, and we do need to put more efforts into that. Now, just to give an idea, a customer usually expects a company to reply within 2 hours for any kind of inquiry. And having this kind of response time of 2 hours is very challenging, particularly for a company coming from a different culture, a different background, and going into a market where the customers are not ready themselves. Now we have these challenges in Europe.
I understand. So Tinci is mainly based in China, as you said, but due to this transportation topics of the electrolyte, you are already having some plants outside China, I understand. Where do you have the main overseas, let's say?
Tinci, the transportation is not the only requirement. Yes, we also have the geography requirement. We also have the response time. We just want to increase the service level to our customers. It's so much easier to discuss on the same time zone. But then, going back to the question, we have a different approach compared to our competitors. We do not have our own factory outside of China yet. We do have some OEM plants. At this moment, we have a plant in the Czech Republic, OEM partnership with a Japanese company. And we also have an OEM plant in the United States, which is also a partnership with a Korean company this time. At the same time, we are also building our own factories, but we are not only building for electrolytes, we are building the vertical integrated supply chain. And here we go into the lithium PF6 and later other materials that are related to our business. And So far, we have two major projects, one in Morocco, another one in the United States. But at the same time, we also have some good projects that are not announced yet in Southeast Asia.
Okay. And when you say OEM plants, it means that some OEM vehicle.
No, when I say OEM, OEM is actually the business model. There is an electrolyte plant in Czech Republic that was already there, and we are basically working in a partnership where we bring our own technology, our own raw materials, and this partner helps us do the manufacturing process based on our recipes.
Understood. So it's a kind of build to print or something like this?
You could call it like that. But it's much more complex.
Yeah, of course.
We call it a strategic partnership because it has to be a win-win.
Okay, understood.
So the product of the OEM is a battery cell?
No, it is electrolyte.
Electrolyte.
So you can think about it this way. We do not have to build our own factory. Somebody already has that factory readily available for us to use. And we just bring the recipe. Because for electrolyte, it's like the coffee.
Okay.
You just mix some materials with, but you need to get the right taste.
So that means you are less exposed to issues of overcapacity because like you are bringing IP, but you don't have capex allocated in there. Is someone else's capex or?
Well, this is a very good question. Talking about overcapacity in terms of electrolytes outside of China is a very interesting topic because there are so many plants in Europe, in the United States, and then there are so many companies with non-binding offtake agreements. Because now this is, it happened a lot in the previous years that companies focus more on getting the orders from companies that did not start ramping up yet. Only to secure some long-term plans. And in our case, we usually invest in markets where we are cost efficient, where we are competitive, and where we see that there is a market existing. We are working very closely with the cell manufacturers. So we usually know faster than other companies when there is an immediate effect, because the electrolyte is a custom-made product. You need to know before you set other materials in place how the electrolyte will look like. And going to overcapacity, we decided to come in the market at a time when we were needed, at a time when we have seen that our partners were ready to start ramping up. And at that time, we identified the fact that there is already some overcapacity in Europe and the United States. And we have taken a decision, rather than investing in a new plant, putting more capex in a plant that will increase the overcapacity even more, to just cooperate with a strategic partner over there and try to use the existing capacity from other companies. And so far, we are quite successful doing this. And yes, it brings the benefit of not having to risk our own capex, but this was not the main point. It was mostly about increasing the efficiency.
What's the biggest challenge in building capacity or investing out of China, for example, in Europe? Is it regulation? Is it the supply chain here is not mature enough? So can you tell us a little bit about that?
We always look first at the infrastructure. We had a case where we wanted to build a factory, but unfortunately the infrastructure in that region was not ready, and having to fix the infrastructure required a lot of time, and because of this we changed into other more efficient models. But then you also look at the market that is not mature enough. So you see so many companies, including cell manufacturers, that have built very early, and they have not been able to ramp up quickly enough, or they were not able to move from pilot to giga scale. As somebody said, a gigafactory can also bring a giga problem if it's not managed properly. And if I would look at the biggest challenge is usually having to land at the right time and having the customers ready to offtake your product. But of course, there are challenges on all sides, and everybody is working towards solving them. Everything else, I would say, it can be fixed. If you look at manpower, people can be trained. If you look at finances, you can find money everywhere as long as you have a good project. And if you look at everything else, we are already the largest player in the market, so we are very close to the customers. It's only a matter of timing and market.
Okay, you said you have one of your main, let's say, advantages is this vertical integration of the electrolyte. So you have electrolyte recipe, but you also have the production of the salts. We have lithium PFS6 today as a main salt, which is used for transporting the lithium ions from the anode to the cathode. But we see also maybe a substitute in the future, which is lithium FSI. What is your approach? Will lithium FSI substitute completely the lithium PFS6 in the future? Are we going to see a slowly ramp up of these new materials?
The electrolyte consists of three main materials. One is the solvent, the other one is the lithium salt, which usually uses lithium PF6, and additives. Additives are some materials that just change some of the performance of the battery based on the requirement.
For cold temperatures, for example, or
exactly. Depending on the performance requirement, because the battery is used in different environments. Sometimes you have cold temperature, sometimes you have hot temperature, and then you also have fast charging, slower charging. It depends on how the cell manufacturer designs this cell. Different target customer. Okay. And the lithium PF6 is a very important material inside. Now, Tinci Materials has taken a strategic decision many years ago to invest in the vertical integralization of this material. And it has turned to be a very good decision because it helped us penetrate the market even more in times of struggles. If you are familiar with the lithium market, you will see that the price is very volatile. There are times when there is not enough material in place. And when there is not enough supply for this lithium salt, then the whole market has to look at very expensive solutions. For us having our in-house solution, it helped us absorb some of the risk and to support our customers even more to develop their problems. And this has brought better connections with the customers, better terms, long-term contracts, and eventually we were able to grow together with the customers. And now we are in a position where we have a very high self-sufficiency rate in the raw materials. Looking at lithium FSI, for both lithium PF6 and lithium FSI, Tinci Materials is actually the player with the largest capacity. But although we see lithium FSI being used more and more, at the moment it's still mostly used as an additive rather than a main salt. So you can add lithium FSI to change the performance of the battery, but the lithium FSI comes with its own challenges. For example, corrosion with the aluminum inside the battery. And the more you add, the more challenges you encounter.
Of course.
Now, could it be replacing lithium PF6? We have seen chemistries with a very high content of lithium FSI, but when you look at the cost efficiency, when you look at all the aspects that it brings against, on the short to middle term, probably not. But yes, there is an increase in the market requirement. And we do believe that lithium FSI can stand as a very good material by itself.
Maybe a little bit back to regulations. So in Europe, there is a specific regulation for batteries. So how do you plan to adapt to it? Is there plans to have R&D centers here in Europe to enable that, or what's the strategy around that?
So for us to adapt to the regulations, we look at two directions. We can look at R&D. We can also look at ESG, and we have two parts. For R&D, it's very easy to implement because we spend quite a large percentage of our revenue in R&D cost each year. And
can you share that? What it is?
I don't have the exact figure on hand, but I can tell you it's very large. And then we have started investing in R&D centers outside of China. We already have one in South Korea, we have one in the United States, and we are building it everywhere it's required. At the moment, most of the R&D is still done in China, but this is mostly because there is where we have all the tools, and it's so much easier. But the more the business develops, the more we will be inclined to invest in R&D centers in Europe. Hence, for our customers, it's so much better to send a sample from Europe than to send it from China. So that's also one of the requirements. But then the more critical part, I would say, is ESG. Because in the European Union, in the United States, the ESG requirements are so much stricter for pretty much everything. And here is where our materials actually have a great competitive advantage, because our liquid salts are kind of unique in the industry. We are using the liquid form of the lithium salt. And when you use the liquid form, this means that you use less electricity to heat up the product, to melt it. You use less time to produce the material, and overall, based on our calculations, our carbon footprint for lithium salts is at least 40% lower than what our competitors have. And this provides a very good advantage in the carbon footprint.
That sounds a good, let's say, good advantage of Tinci Materials. What about the cost perspective? Is it, you said now the European market is growing more and more. Would it still make sense to import the raw materials for those electrolytes, for those salts coming from China, or is there a chance somewhere in the next 5 to 10 years to implement also a raw material supply chain within Europe?
We are looking at short term and long term. On the short term, it is very challenging to get all the materials from other places rather than China. But now we see that there is a trend to invest, and there are more investments outside of China that will probably enable in a longer term future the manufacturing in the local market. Will it be 100% in Europe? Extremely challenging, but there are new materials coming out. For example, our own investment in Morocco, where we will manufacture lithium PF6 and later also other materials, and at the same time in the United States, where we will have local lithium PF6 production. At the same time, we are also pushing our suppliers and our partners to come up with investments, but some investments require large capex. And putting so much capex in the market, unless there's a market that can absorb it, it is very difficult to sustain. So nowadays, for some projects we can move very fast, whereas for some projects we also need to get some feedback from the customers to see that they can start ramping up.
So maybe a final question to close. What opportunities you see to grow in other regions where there are opportunities for overseas investment or new innovations coming up that would bring some new investments?
We usually look at what are the projects that bring value. We have spoken with many material suppliers and many companies that have large projects, and they believe that it's very difficult to obtain financing. In our perspective, as long as the project is valuable, getting financing is not very difficult. You just need to have all the tools to show to your investors that you can handle their money, that you can reduce the risk, and you have enough offtake agreements to deploy it. In our case, we have our own consumption in lithium salts. That's where I was going. So the upstream materials are still very attractive to investors, and lithium PF6 being one of them. Why? Because this is more challenging to implement, more challenging to copy, and has a better return on investment on the long term. If you look at products that have overcapacity, those ones are projects with high risk. But for the projects that do not have that overcapacity yet, the investors will always be interested. And I would say upstream there is still enough room to invest in Europe, and Europe is a very good market, a very attractive market. It has a shadow from the past few years where companies had some challenges, but now, particularly this year, we can see
looking better, huh?
Yes, we can see more companies finding the end of the tunnel. So we just need some time.
All right. So great note to end, I think, on a positive note. So thank you so much, Ciprian,
Also, thank you
for coming to talk with us on Mobilidad, and enjoy the rest of the show.
Also, thank you, and you too.
Thank you.